dear friends. Let me begin by saying what a great pleasure it is to share my views on the subject of India, Germany, and a changing world. And let me come directly to the point because I understand time is at a premium. Now, most of you would be familiar with India in some manner. You may or may not have served there, visited there, but you would have a broad sense of it. But allow me to give you a brief description because India has changed enormously in the last decade. It is today a near $4 trillion economy that has 8% growth prospects for decades further to come, where the pace of infrastructure growth is reflected in 8 new airports and 1 to 2 new metro systems built annually, where 28 kilometers of highway and 12 kilometers of railway track are laid daily. Its embrace of digital technologies is creating a public infrastructure on a massive scale. It has enabled, in the last decade, a housing program that has benefited about 170 million people, a health coverage of 660 million, and loans that are given annually to 58 small businesses. India records the highest digital financial transactions in the world, which are currently about 13 billion each month. It has the 3rd largest startup ecosystem with 117 unicorns.
And see, we met 2 years ago, first time on longer discussions when I was in Delhi taking the metro and experiencing your modernization strategy kilometer by kilometer, but also not only seeing people buying groceries, but also being very impressed by your UP, Unified Payments Interface, a digital instant payment system, if you would just buy fruits on the street. I thought this would be impossible in Germany. Millions user every day, but we also watched that closely and we did a big jump compared to our speed here in Germany, also with regard to digitalization, especially in my field in the foreign minister, because also I saw not only that it's possible to pay on the street with digital payments, but also I saw, unfortunately, in our embassy, in our consulate, that we are carrying application forms for visa still in boxes where you normally carry your washing clothes. So I thought, okay, I cannot change the payment on the street, but I can definitely change the digitalization in our ministry. And also we have worked on that beforehand and we tried to apply the Indian speed. And I'm really honored and thankful to my whole team that today we have not only digitalized our forms there, it's kind of a revolution, all embassies around the world, but starting in India because of our strong relations. And now we have seen an increase of 25% within these 2 years of Indian students and professionals to Germany with regard to visas, but especially the waiting time in the embassy, which was a big obstacle, especially for all the students you mentioned here. And I think it's now already at 50,000 Indian students studying in German, that we came down from 9 months waiting time to 2 weeks.
Question, which is the challenges posed by the bureaucracy to economic growth, to business. It's a reality, okay. But it's also a reality that is recognized by the government. So, in fact, when Prime Minister Modi was first elected, when he first came to power as Prime Minister in 2014, one of his earliest efforts was to shake up the government to try and make it easier to do business. Those days, there was actually a World Bank ranking. They stopped it for some complicated reasons I don't want to go into. But what we had done till the rankings were actually there, we were actually going up the rankings very fast. Now, we found, until you actually recognize a problem and accept there's a problem, you can't fix it. So I do want to assure you that for us, there is a very sharp realization at the highest levels of the government that we have to make India a more business-friendly country. It isn't just bureaucracy. Sometimes we have outdated regulations and laws. There's a big push to modernize all of that.
I think it's better to start with him and then, yeah?
I think all the questions.
Mr. Jaishankar.
On the Indo-Pacific, it has been for us now, in many ways, a central preoccupation. And for very obvious reasons, because I think when you look at the world and you assess the sharpness of changes, perhaps the theater, the region where the shifts have been most marked have been really the Indo-Pacific. Now, what has happened in the Indo-Pacific? Essentially, from our perspective, because Annalena spoke about, countries, democracies, those who have similar political values coming together. That's actually happened in the Indo-Pacific. You had India, the US, Japan, Australia, located at 4 different corners, in a way, of the Indo-Pacific, actually taking a decision to work together, and that's how we revived the Quad. It was something which was attempted in 2007, and then in 2017, I think the countries decided, okay, we need to have another go at it and much more serious effort. And today, in fact, for us, it's one of the major diplomatic platforms to which India is committed, and it's we hold it from the president, prime minister level downwards, different ministers, different groups. Now, what actually happens here? Once countries make it a point to say, okay, let's find ways of working. The kind of achievements we've had in the Indo-Pacific would be from cooperating on maritime security and maritime domain awareness, to HADR operations, to connectivity issues, to we actually have fellowships, STEM fellowships. We looked even during COVID on whether we could together make and distribute vaccines. We are doing weather, extreme climate events forecasting. So we are looking at standards of various kinds. So it's in many ways for us been a very successful experiment. The interesting thing is the Quad has grown in the last 7 years. It doesn't have a secretariat. It has no formal structure. There's no accession agreement. And yet, every quarter, I would say, something new is added to the Quad. And that is what happens when countries willing and, trusting of each other start to work with each other. Why is it necessary to do that in the Indo-Pacific? Because we do think that unless countries who have an interest in stability, in security, in maintaining, in ensuring that there is a freedom of choice, unless they come together. So it's, it happens even in societies. It happens in every neighborhood that people who have good intent sometimes need to make common cause if the world has to be a better place. And in that sense, that's really what is happening in the Indo-Pacific. On the renewables, yes, if I were to look at the last year, I think it's been the wettest, hottest, coldest year, probably all at the same time. We are visibly seeing the impact. in India, there are no debates whether climate change is for real or not. I mean, people experience that in their daily lives. And given the fact that so much of our country is agriculture, it actually is a matter of existence. And we are seeing, we're seeing the mountains threatened, glaciers withdrawing, melting. We are seeing the coastline threatened. So there's the levels of erosion are going up. So there is, I would say the levels of interest and even public commitment to it has really been dramatically different. Now, how does it express itself? Because yes, in our parlance, we say, okay, mitigation and adaptation. In real life, I mean, it could be something like there was a big campaign last year to eat more millets. Now, you might think that this is a food fad. It's a very important green initiative because millets consume much less water. They are, you can grow them in semi-arid climate. There is today pressure on wheat and rice. Now, it could be that, it could be rooftop, it could be the entire it's a shift of lifestyle. What we are doing in urbanization is precisely because of that. So for us, if you ask me, what is your answer? It's all of the above. There is nothing that we are not prepared to try and nothing we are not prepared to work with people in order really to deal with this challenge. Last question, how do you deal with some of the challenges that were asked about? You asked me a question, was it costly for you to do a switch? Here's the answer. We actually, for a variety of reasons, decided that we would ourselves take a plunge on 5G. Till that point of time, the 5G technology was either European or it was Chinese. Well, there was also Korean. Now, once we decided this is important for us, telecom means security. Now, it took us about 2.5, 3 years, really. Today, there's a massive 5G rollout, and the 5G stack is an Indian stack. So I would argue that, yes, it looks costly upfront, but then you might want to ask yourself, what is really the cost of security, and whether you've built it into the calculations that you're making. And once you make that plunge, then perhaps it's not so costly. Even business-wise, it's not so costly. I mean, we are today looking at markets for our 5G. So, on the issue of investments, look, we are not close to business from China. I mean, this is the country, it's the second largest economy in the world. It's a premium manufacturer. So there's nobody who can say, I won't do business with China. I think the issue is which sectors do you do business, on what terms do you do business? So it's far more complicated than a black and white binary answer. Let me say this, Prime Minister Modi went to Russia in July, and we all went to Kiev in August, about 10 days ago. Now, here is what we think. We don't think that this conflict is going to be resolved in the battlefield. That at some stage, there's going to be some negotiation. Now, when there is a negotiation, the main parties, I mean, in this case, Russia and Ukraine, have to be at that negotiation. That it cannot be that the negotiation is everybody else taking a position and then going to Russia and saying, okay, this is our collective position. Maybe, that could be one facet of it, but eventually there has to be a negotiation. We also don't think that conflicts are a good way of resolving differences. I mean, countries have differences, neighbors especially have differences. But we don't think this is an era, given the interdependence. We've all seen the consequences of this conflict across the world. That there are parts of the world far, far away where it's created a food crisis, it's created a fuel crisis, it's actually created political crisis in countries because the ripple impact of this conflict has actually hurt people. So we have been very open about it. What we have said in Moscow is also what we have said in Kiev. And we have said in public in Moscow that we don't think this is an era of war. We don't think you're going to get a solution out of the battlefield. We think you've got to negotiate. It's not for us to tell you what terms. If you want advice, we are always willing to give it.